You should know that this goes beyond politics. There are some downright dirty scandals going on behind the scenes that they are working very hard to keep from the public. As a political science major, you should know this, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, as somebody who's French-Canadian, Québécois, je parle français, and someone who is Indigenous, if you think that politics isn't corrupt or hasn't been an inherently corrupt system, that is your problem. That's why when people are in my comment section saying, you're a liberal, and I say, no, I'm not a liberal. I don't like politicians. And the fact that anybody, and the problem I have in, recently with conservatives is the fact that they pedestalize their political leaders. No one should be pedestalizing any political leaders. And now I'm not talking about the people, because liberals won this time around primarily because a lot of conservatives flipped to vote liberal in this election. You've seen a lot of conservatives come forward saying that. The problem is with the Conservative Party in particular, as someone who's Indigenous, is I know how corrupt they are. To think that the politics is not corrupt is to be a white privileged person. To think that the corruption has just started, is somehow new, or these scandals never existed before, is to be someone who has some sort of privilege. Because I'm sorry, are you not aware of what's happened to Indigenous people in this country since its literal inception? That's like saying, like, people in the United States saying that the government's supposed to look out for the little guy. It's like, yeah, only if your skin color is a certain color. The system is heavily rigged against people of color. The problem is that the people who have an inherent problem with our current political system don't understand that the political system has always had its thumb on people. It's always had its boots on people. You just haven't been someone who's been directly affected up until a certain point. Which is why when Mario brings up Mark Carney's dad said this and he's so problematic, he's so this. Do you think that anyone from the past who was involved with the school system, politics, etc., said anything kinder about Indigenous children, about Indigenous leaders, about Indigenous culture? And the thing is about the conservative people that come up on this app that say this is they're trying to weaponize it. They're trying to get white people upset about things that have been going on for over a century. That's why I don't like politics, because I know what politics is. The thing is you guys are just all cluing into this. You're just going, oh, politics, bad. We don't like this party. All of them. All of them. Every single one of them. There's a plantation that just burnt to the ground in the United States that was being used as a plantation resort. If the government cared about what happened, that wouldn't be allowed to happen. It wouldn't get zoned to allow those things to happen. Just by looking at Mario's background, he is essentially someone who specializes in numbers, finance, and banking, and marketing. He's part of the 1%. He cares about the 1% because he is part of the 1%. Largely my issue with the conservatives is they're not for you and me. Generally. They don't want to give dental care. They don't want to give child care. They don't want to give kids lunches in schools. They don't want to acknowledge Indigenous rights, Indigenous heritage, truth and reconciliation. And then the thing is that people will come forward and they'll be like, oh, Alberta wants to separate. You know what the Indigenous should do? They should renegotiate new treaties with a government that wants to align with a white south of the border. The very man who has talked about wanting to take away citizenship from Indigenous people in their country. And the reason, ChatGPT, not a source. AI apps, not a source. And I say all of that because those things have inherent bias. Every time you ask a question into a search engine, you have an inherent bias. Pick up a book. Go read a book by people that don't look like you, that don't look like me. Learn about history. Learn about colonization. Learn about the systems that set up the very country that you live in. Learn about white supremacy and what that means and how that culture is rooted in our political system. Understand that system a little bit deeper so that when you ask questions into a search engine, you have a little bit more of a nuanced take, a little bit less of a bias that you have due to your upbringing. And that bias is not inherently a wrong thing. We all have a bias. But if you want to talk to, I'm French Canadian and Indigenous. If there's going to be anyone that's genetically predispositioned to not like government, it's going to be the Indigenous French Canadian. And je parle français. And what studying in university, these systems has taught me, they're inherently flawed. But what politician is going to do the least amount of harm to the least amount of people? Which one is looking out for the most amount of people? But if you think that any single one of them is going to answer every single question in a way that you like, you don't understand politics. And if you don't understand that our system inherently hurts people because it's based on a white supremacist belief system. John A. Macdonald, when he was, there's a quote from him talking about not wanting to give the right to vote to Indigenous people because it would take away from the rights of, quote, white men. Because when they created the system, when they created voting, when they created all of this, which is what we see as Canada, it was to benefit white men. Outside of that, if you're not part of that group, it was not created to benefit you.